YouTube last night, and at one point we were getting words people said echoed about a minute later because of the YouTube delay. Okay. All right. I am going to take this off.
No, I am.
It's like you've got,
Do I have three choices?
I don't know what's going on there. I think that might be the master switch.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, I take it everybody can hear me, and I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:05 on Tuesday,
June 3rd.
June 3rd. Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'm
I
thinking,
didn't
no,
think
it
of-
can't be June 3rd. It's late. I'm thinking it's later than that. That's really sad. 2025. In attendance are Sally Gallagher, Chuck Phillips, Nan Latimer, Lou Mandich, and Paul Gassi. And I'm now going to open the floor for public comment. Do we have no public? And hearing no public comment, we will proceed to the first order of the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from the March meeting. Are there any comments about the March meeting minutes? Corrections, changes?
It looked good to me. I
Okay.
read it last week when you put it out, but
All right, well, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so that's a motion by Mr. Mandich. And a second by Mr. Phillips. And all in favor? Say aye or raise your hand or do both. Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that's unanimous. We'll move on to old business. I'll skip over topics on which there's nothing to report at this time. And so the first item is the Churchill African Cemetery. So there's been quite a bit of progress since our last meeting. We had a start clearing an area at the top of the hill, which I think I sent photos out to everyone about that. And then yesterday, in the morning, we had a meeting with the Reverend Sandra Taylor from Galilee UAME Church, which is the successor congregation of the church. Also, there was Crystal Crampton from PA Hallowed Grounds and Galilee and the UME Church. She was, but is not currently the church historian. And Sally was there, Nan was there, I was there, and Bob Magnus from the Franklin Sportsman's Association was there. And we basically sort of made Reverend Taylor aware of the research that we had done on the people who were buried there. And we also gave her sort of abbreviated tour, which at this time of year especially is dodging the foliage from the shrubs along the ground. And we talked about Galilee getting involved in cleanup efforts, and we didn't schedule anything specifically. She wanted to know when the FSA was going to be going out again, and Bob is looking into that. We may be doing evening rather than weekend work at the site. And then Nan started investigating possible folks who could do chipping. And Dan, you want to pick it up?
Sure. So I had a fella that worked here at the farm that would charge half day and daily rates. And he has a small chipper. And so I started to think about it. So I texted Jeff and I said, can I have Yardworks number, Jim's number? And I talked with Jim, and Yardworks is going to do it for free.
So that's really great news.
And they have a big chipper. So they'll during the week, during the week, which I mean the work day. So we have to schedule that once we get the brush all ready.
Right.
They will work a whole day, and if it has to be a weekend, they'll work half a day for free, and they'll chip it and shoot it into a dump truck, and it goes away.
Oh my God, that's great.
So congratulations, Anne. Thank you very much. That's really great.
Oh, thank you to Jim. I mean, I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, no, that is too, but you thought to call them. And so do you know how big, as we clear this material, we should try and set ourselves up to give him whatever's reasonable? And do you know how big a piece of?
Well, I think that I think what he did was he said he had to talk to his guys. So I think what happened is he talked to some guys that work for him, and somebody's volunteered to do it for free and not be paid. And then Jim's giving him the chipper and the dump truck, or two guys or whatever. So I can't answer that question. I think that, we should talk to Jim or to the guys that volunteered and just say, how do you want us to do? Because I said to him, we will have the brush already. And what I said, there's that high embankment, and I have to go back and look. So, always trying to get things done quickly here. I think we can maybe make a place where we can have a chute and like push it down the embankment, and they can pull it down and then chip it from the road. So we can have a couple places. So there's not a whole lot of labor dragging the stuff.
Right.
So we can be quick. So to answer your question, I think we all have to have a meeting and say, how are we going to do this? How do you want it?
Right.
But
Okay.
I think he has a commercial chipper. I think he has a big chipper. I don't know how many sizes chippers are there.
I have no idea.
But Chris, the other guy, said he had a small chipper.
Right.
So I'm assuming because it's Yardworks, they have a regular one when you go by, that they shove it in. I don't think it's going to take them very long to chip the stuff once we have it ready.
No, I don't think that'll be an issue either. But if we have a general estimate of what is a reasonable thickness for a branch for them to take, if we have some bigger pieces that we happen to have that are fallen, if they could be chipped, that would be great. That's the only thing.
Okay. But I think that once we are ready and we have everything like along the side, whatever we decide to do, that maybe we invite them to come and take a look and get there. I mean, they're better at it than I am. So, so they'll know.
No, I agree that we are going to have to meet with them. And I've let Bob know and basically said we need to sort of try and get ourselves organized and on a schedule so that we can work at this at a steady rate, so that now that we've got a place where this can go, it will be a motivation for getting it done more quickly.
And I would do it quickly, because if we leave large things of brush, it's going to get grown in, which makes it a problem if we have to yank it out of there. So, let's have a hullabaloo and get it done.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
so
thank you.
I think
that was
that's really great, and I agree. Thank you, Yardworks, indeed.
Are you going to use any of the mulch on site? Does it make sense to use it?
No, because it's got seeds in it. I don't want any of that.
It's going to have seeds and thorns in it.
Oh, so I guess they're going to take it to the landfill.
No, I don't want any berries in there.
Right.
No, I just wondered.
No, we're not.
Take it away.
Because it's really the shrubby stuff is what we're clearing out, and so Um,
It's
you know,
mostly that autumn olive, yeah.
a lot of these things have already flowered and are setting fruit now.
Mm.
So by the time we get it all done, there will be, as Nan says, seeds in there. The last thing we want to do is
Sit the seed.
after we get there, after we're getting there and like making sure all these stumps are dead, to put more seeds in the ground is just kind of nuts. And so, yeah, so that, you know, I have to get some information, general information on cleanup and guidelines and things off to Reverend Taylor, and some historical documents associated with the deed, things like that, associated with the cemetery, the information we have. And I also want to get, we have this spreadsheet that Nan and Sally did a lot of work on doing, and, collecting the data and doing a lot of the entry. I basically poured stuff in it that had been done, especially by Nan, even before the spreadsheet was created. And the township printed it out on the plotter printer. And so it's 3 giant pages, about that big across. What is that, 3 feet maybe? And, equally almost 3 feet deep. And my initial attempt to print this out was to print it on 8.5 by 11 paper. And I got it all printed out, and I had 54 sheets, 3 across and whatever it is down. And I started laying it out. I laid out 4, and I realized I wasn't expecting to create one giant document, but I realized I was going to run out of space on my floor to lay this down and tape it together. Not to mention it was going to make me crazy. And so I called Stacy and Melissa got it in shape to be printed out on the printer here, which is really great. And what we may do eventually is take that PDF after we've done further work and corrections, and use that same size PDF to post it up on the website for viewing, not for, so that people would see it, because it's an incredible piece of information, and it's got all these rows, and you can just go across and you can see the information that we have on each individual, which is really nice. So we'll be, doing some work on that, and I'll be emailing a link to a Google Drive site where this information will all be available. Yeah, so we're going to have to do some planning with the FSA, timing and scheduling. And I think one of the things we need to do is to go out there and look at good sites to set up a shoot. The bank gets pretty high at some point. I don't know. We'll probably need to look at maybe a couple sites or places where we could just cut our way directly to the edge of the bank. And just throw it down if need be, because walking it down was going to become a nightmare. And
Gravity is your friend.
Yeah, gravity is my friend, I think. And so, and I was talking to Bob, texting Bob, and my feeling was, we basically need to focus on the brush removal right now. We can cut through large logs that are in the way in order to make it easier for us to walk around. But really, this chipping process is going to get rid of brush and saplings and things like that. And so the stuff that's on the ground, as long as we can make it walkable, we can worry about getting rid of that later and just set up for a broad cleanup of the area with respect to the density of brush. And the other thing is, I would like to continue to try and treat it as we work, so that we minimize the likelihood that these things are coming back from the roots. And so, Nan, that's one question I actually had for you. If you're
I'm here. I'm eating my dinner. I'm sorry. I'm here.
No, it's okay. And that's, you
What?
had that little treatment bottle.
I still have it. Yep. The dauber.
And yeah, and so I was wondering if where you got it, and what the name of it was.
Yeah. Hold on a minute.
Because we could probably use a couple of those. And I was comparing.
I use it so much. I have it on my kitchen windowsill.
Sounds like a good thing to keep with food.
Right. So it's Buckthorn Blaster.
Buckthorn?
Buckthorn
Right.
Blaster.
Okay.
The bottle. What you put in it is full strength Roundup, and with that,
Right.
they come with colors. You can get blue or red, and you
Okay.
color it so you know that you got it on.
Right. And I would assume we could just use food coloring with it. Do you know where you got it? Out of
Well,
curiosity?
just Google it. Nasima is the
Okay.
name of the company, Naisma. But if you Google Buckthorn Blaster,
Okay.
because I found out when I took a course at I forget where, but anyways, yep,
Yeah. So I want to get a couple of those so that,
they're cheap. They're cheap as all get out. Yep.
right. And I also determined that the stump killer that I was applying with that cute little brush is the same ingredient in a brush killer. It's just the undiluted form, and so I know what bottles to buy where I can get that brush killer.
Well,
And just
whatever. You just use
pour
full
it in.
strength. You don't dilute it.
Right. No, that I understand. So that's good.
Yeah,
I want to look
Buckthorn
into that.
Blaster.
Right. Okay, and so the only other thing as we go forward doing this is trying to have historical commission representative there, at least when township members like the FSA are working on it, whether we need to do that or not. Bob wanted that, but I think Bob is getting more comfortable with the site. I think if we work up a program, we're not going to typically have more than 4 people out there at one time. It gets crowded fast. It's not a big site, and so I don't know if, say, Bob and the FSA is working there. It's as essential for someone from the historical commission to be out there. And I'm just thinking this in terms of the fact that I'm not going to be available to do any work. Hang on, I got to let that.
What?
So yeah, because I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks in June, which is unfortunately usually a good time to be working because it's often not too hot.
I can be available. Can I have,
Okay.
will you email me Bob's email?
I actually don't have Bob's email. I've been talking with Bob via text, so I can give you his text.
Yeah, give me his cell phone because
Yeah.
I have 2 boys that are really great that work for me. They're brothers.
Okay.
And we'll have some time, and I'm going to take them down there, and we're going to hack away at a little bit. They know all about Automala from working here.
Okay.
But I want to let Bob know when we're going to be there too.
So the other thing is that we're letting the Clarks know when we're going to be there, and so all you really have to do is text me the day before, and I can let Joe Clark know.
Well, okay. Can you do something for say that sometimes Nan might be there with 2 boys?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know that he's expecting me to be out there. I would just let him know that we got a work crew.
Right, but I mean, what might happen here is that if I have the boys for 4 hours and we run out of work here, I'm going to throw them in the truck and run them down there. So,
okay, I'll let him know that there may be some
right,
sort of spontaneous appearance of
yeah,
right,
I'm
yeah,
happy
sure.
to go too. Paul, I'm happy to go over too if Nan's not available or whatever.
Okay.
One week in
Go
Just
ahead.
one we
Yeah, it's
can
really
try.
only the, it's really only the next 2 weeks and, and I'm doing something with my dad who's 95, so I'm not changing my plans
Oh,
for a
nice.
cemetery
No
that's been
worries, that
neglected
works for
so
me.
long.
I mean, I can go. I'm gonna go down tomorrow and just kind of look at the banks too about trying to slide that brush down.
Yeah, so, um, yeah, look at the bank and look to see, one of the things I'd like to, be sure is that we avoid, if it's possible, hiding identified, stones that, that we've got there. If we can find a place where that's free of them and create a pile, beside the bank. Because as we get in further, especially the grave markers that are not headstones become much more common. We
Right.
worked in an area where the known markers are actually, uncommon of all sorts. There are maybe 5 headstones there, and I don't know that we have any, identified grave markers. I think, that's going to be one of the trickier things because we're going to be balancing, good access to the bank and the road below it with, trying to avoid, tromping on the stones, that sort of thing. So to
Those
get a little,
those stones, though, they're pretty good. I was thinking
they
that
are,
we could rake. I'm interested in raking back the leaves or whatever, so we can actually see all the stones.
right. But and that's something I would like to do too. And because it's also going to be a way we're going to go looking for stones we can't see,
Right.
such as, headstones that may be lying flat. But until until we can walk the site, that's going to be tough to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why the brush, yeah. So,
So we got to get the brush done. I was talking to one of the boys that was here that we will do small, narrow, like 6 feet places. And before we start, we're actually going to go and like take one of the driveway stakes and tap to see if we have anything so we can find any maybe headstones that fell down. So we're not walking on them.
yeah, I know. That's a good idea. Because we
And then
really,
we'll start by the road and we'll move up the hill in our little 6 foot like corridor. So anyways, and so yeah, it will work.
yeah, no, we'll get it done. That's great. Um, all right. So I think some of this is just going to be then, I'm going to have to, um, well, Bob's going to look into, a more firmed up schedule and then we can maybe all sort of figure out, I mean, you can't figure out how to coordinate, the random few free hours. But if we need more people or if we have interested volunteers who would like to pitch in, then maybe we can create other work opportunities when,
Oh, sure.
Bob is not out there with the FSA.
So Sally, Sally.
And I have to keep Reverend Taylor in the loop too.
Sure. So Sally had a really good idea that I want to get, and I agree with her, to get a picture like a Chesco Views map of the area. And as best we can start to put little circles on there that's where the grave markers are.
Right.
So, make a map of that. I think that's a great idea. So it will come in as we clear it, because we were kind of stumbling around. Where's the Harris's and stuff like that. I think it was a great
Yeah.
idea. We should do that.
I mean, I'm even happy just to draw it freehand for now and just kind of, so you have some bearing of
Sort of plot it
That's a
out.
good idea. That's a
Where-
great idea.
Yeah, doing it
since
out
we
on
know
graph
where the
paper.
foundation is now.
Yeah.
Right.
Use
And
that.
in the book, when they buried the veterans on the veterans card, it says grave is southwest of the center of the church and stuff like that. So that will help once we get cleared that we can,
Yeah.
tie that into it. That's a good idea, Sally. Yeah, to hand draw it if you'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other ideas concerning the, cemetery?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Then we can move on. Let me see where my agenda is. All right, so I still have to figure out if they're going to do a cleanup or planning a cleanup with Mount Olivet. Not so much for right now, but at some point, I need to go down there and take a look at it. And I'm thinking that going forward, when we get this cemetery when we get Church Hill to a level at which maintenance is possible, we could look at trying to get Mount Olivet into that state as well. So I have to talk to Chuck McGaw Jr. about that. That's not going to happen soon, but I think that the last time I saw that cemetery, it was not in as bad a shape. And so the key will be to keep it in half decent shape so that it doesn't get to the situation we're experiencing up on Church Hill. So the next thing is the Mason-Dixon Art Corner Heritage Interpretation and Connectivity Project. So last night I basically presented the draft with an emphasis on those parts that most directly affect Franklin to the supervisors. And that meeting went for about 2 hours. It was the Board of Supervisors workshop meeting. And we went through everything. I briefly talked, perhaps a little too long, on the why the Mason-Dixon line survey is important, and why this project, really should happen, because the survey itself is not well understood. And there were a few things that are stumbling blocks because there are some suggestions that are somewhat at variance with the township's position on development of Big Elk Creek. So we're going to work to bring those things into line, but fundamentally the project had a good reception. So I'm hoping that as we move forward, at least in Franklin Township, adoption of the final plan when it's ready will be straightforward. There will be a public meeting either in late June or early to mid-July. It may be held here so that people can attend both in person and via Zoom, or it may be held at Old Stone Cidery on one of their off nights, say a Wednesday or a Tuesday, because they're open from Thursday on. So those are the two venues we're exploring, and the township is fine with 3 of the suggested days. So we have 3 good options there. If, for example, Old Stone Cidery doesn't pan out, the idea is to do this as an in-person meeting primarily, because the last one was kind of a Zoom meeting. And these meetings are apparently lightly attended, which was definitely true of the first public meeting that I did attend. There were only maybe 10 people who were not involved in the project in some way who attended. So that's pretty much that. We're in the draft plan stage, and there are a lot of little wording kinks that have to be fixed, but the fundamentals of the plan, I think, are pretty much in good shape and look good. Nothing the plan suggests is going to happen fast, because it's money, it's time, it's research for all of this stuff to happen. Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's at the cider, will there be refreshments? That's the important thing.
It's my understanding they might be refreshments, but not necessarily free.
Well, yeah, that's expected. Yeah, of course.
Right.
But
Yes. So that, yeah, it could lead to, there will be refreshments after the meeting, however, not during the meeting.
it'll make a better meeting if the refreshment.
Yeah, it might do things to people's memory and I would rather see people, if somebody's going to get upset, I'd rather see them do it without alcohol in their bloodstream. Let's put it that way. If everybody is interested in finding good with it, then there might be a nice warm feeling generated by a couple sips of cider or lager. But yeah, no, I
Sounds
think
like a sporting event. It sounds like a sporting event. It could go either way. It depends on who wins. It's all good.
Yeah, are we talking about Phillies fans at a sporting event here?
It doesn't matter. They're all sporting
Some
events.
some are more involved with their teams than others.
Mhm.
All right, but anyway, I believe the answer to that is yes. So, and since I happen to like their cider, I have no objections to it
Yeah.
being held there. I don't know what way that the Brandywine Conservancy ultimately will come down on this. But it would be nice. It would be an attractive venue, and the other advantage is that well, actually, there are suggestions for in sort of what we call them interpretive signage at both Old Stone Cider and at the township office in the plan. So both sites are, in some ways, are good ones for people attending to experience because they can actually get a sense of locations that would be involved in the plan, and they can see those firsthand. The Old Stone Cider has a little more charm than the municipal building, but the municipal building isn't too bad. It has a vaguely quaint look to it.
If Ben Franklin was in charge, it would be at the cider.
Actually, Franklin didn't drink.
What?
Yeah.
All those quotes?
Yeah, all those quotes. Franklin didn't
That's
drink.
funny. That's funny.
Franklin, very early on, determined that he looked around at the other printers he was competing against and decided he could get a lot more done, that they wasted too much time in drinking beer and were the worse for it as the day progressed.
Yeah, but the water wasn't much good, so.
He didn't even drink when he was in France.
As far as I know,
show.
Franklin did not drink, and he lived to a healthy old age too.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he outlived most of the founding fathers,
Mhm.
although he was older than most of them too.
Yeah.
So on that health and meeting note, we'll move on to the next topic. I don't think there's anything about 896 road work in a walkable Campbellsville. I believe we're still progressing toward the road work. I haven't heard anything otherwise. There's nothing additional to report on Campbellsville and Franklin history, although I am going to be trying to get some images of aerial photos from the 1930s up on the history website that we run so that people can kind of get a view of what the landscape looked like in the 30s. They're kind of interesting photos. I think sometimes it's startling to see how much of it is farmland. There are a lot more trees out there today than there were. And you see farmland in areas you wouldn't expect it. You see it on hilly areas and things like that. So that actually grew out of just a comment that Jim Johnson made last night when we were discussing the plan. I talked about what you could see when you looked at the old aerials, and he asked if they were up, and I said no, but I could put them up. So I've got something else I need to do. Nothing much is happening with the multi-municipal identification of historic resources. There's just too much other stuff to do right now. But at some point, I would like to get back out there and take a look. But I need to get out from under MD HIP. We had a nice talk in New London. Lou and I were talking about that earlier. Liz Lawrence talked about renovating the Avondale train station, and it was really more of a
Adaptive reuse.
adaptive use is what I would call
Because
it.
it wasn't a restoration.
It wasn't a restoration. She basically, I mean, it really, if you know anything about the structure of our historic surveys, there are Class A properties, there are Class B properties, and then there are Class C properties, and hers would definitely have been a Class C property, with having known historic associations, but no longer having any real historic value. So repurposing that and retaining some of what was originally there. In fact, actually, she retained from the exterior most of what was originally there by the time she got a hold of it.
Most of the first floor.
Well, the second
It's long
floor
gone.
was long gone.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the second floor may have been an addition to the first floor at some point anyway. I thought I gained that impression from her talk, like they added it. And then they took it away. And apparently,
In 1946.
yeah, and apparently she thinks they dumped most of it in the basement, that they pulled up the floorboards on the first floor and just threw vast quantities of the debris into what had been the basement. She thought when she started to renovate, she had a crawl space. It turns out as she began to clean up the crawl space, she got deeper and deeper. And she had a basement full of debris.
Yeah, that's a really strange basement because it's as high as this room and cement floor.
Yeah.
Why? Only thing I can think of is maybe milk storage.
Maybe.
The
I
milk,
don't know.
but they would have had to take it down and bring it back up. So
Yeah.
maybe they had a ramp. I don't know, but it was odd that they went to that much trouble
Right.
to pave it. It's a nice floor. I mean, I called it the Avondale swimming pool with it filled with water. But I don't think she's figured it out. There's any definite indication of why it was built
Mhm.
that way.
Mhm. Yeah, so it was, and she found a sign. I forget what it was, a blue enamel sign, blue and white, and I forget. Western Union, maybe?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
Western Union sign.
And it was buried in it was thrown down in there in the debris. But unfortunately, during the excavation of the basement, the backhoe hit it. And so it took a lot of damage. And she thinks it was probably pretty pristine before the backhoe hit it. But still, it's a nice artifact from the old train station. So she had a great talk, and lots of before, during, and current pictures, because I guess she's kind of in the home stretch now from the looks of it. And it really is quite nice. We had a good turnout from the Avondale area, actually. There were people there I knew who came from up in Avondale.
Yeah, it was. I
So
don't know how many people were there.
just under 70.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we had run out of chairs. And so a few people were standing, or in my case, moving from sitting on a wooden bench to standing, because standing was more comfortable than
wooden
sitting
bench.
on a wooden bench.
It's like Quakers have wooden benches. I don't know.
Yeah, these were just really, really simple
Oh.
hard boards. There was zero, contouring or anything, kind of bench you'd expect to be stuck out on a porch to sit down and take your boots off on. But yeah, it was
Yeah,
good.
what is she going to do with it once she renovates it?
It's basically her architectural studio as well as a bit of a workshop. She does some of her own, I don't know if it's milling
Is she an
or
architect?
yeah, she's an architect. But she also does a lot of, I think maybe metal fabricating, for things, various things.
Oh.
Well, that part wasn't 100% clear to me, but she does some, it's a shop as well as,
Yeah,
basically your
part of it's
architectural
gonna-
studio.
Yeah, part of it's gonna be a workshop,
Right.
then
So,
a studio, and then at one point she was gonna live there. I don't think she is now, but there's upstairs kitchen and so on.
so she could crash there
Yeah.
if she wanted to. Yeah. And it was interesting. It's interesting building from the outside, lovely space from the inside. And it's being used, even more importantly. And so some element of what was once there remains, and structure was repurposed for far less money than new construction would probably cost. And she built well.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
looks like
that's
it's
the other
long and narrow.
I'm
Well,
sorry?
Looks like it's long and narrow. When I
Yeah, it
look-
is.
It is.
It was a long, narrow building running alongside the railroad tracks, and
Right.
the railroad track that runs east-west there, which I believe is East Penn
Yeah,
line.
East Bend.
That's still running.
That's one still runs, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So
Yeah.
that was interesting. She started out by talking out a little bit about the railroad lines themselves, and then the train station in its earlier stages, and then all the fun she's having, working her way deeper and deeper into the basement, et cetera.
Well, interestingly enough, it was a crossroads. The north-south line went from Port Deposit to Pomeroy, stopping at Clonmel, which is 926 and 841. It was, you wonder why Avondale didn't grow bigger with the crossroads of a railroad there, but it didn't.
No, it didn't, but
But it was
it's a substantial town
yeah,
for this area.
that's true.
And I don't know that Newark would be much bigger without the university.
Oh, you're right, that's true.
So, although there is more industry
Well, now there
there,
is.
yeah. So, starting off September, we may have a talk on the Newark and Pomeroy Railroad
Oh,
from Jack Hill, who did a book on it. So that would be, I think it's the 16th, which happens to be the third Tuesday. Third Tuesday. Well, whatever the third Tuesday is. We've been talking to him, and we just need to firm things up. We didn't make the final decision until the chair of the New London Area Historical Society came back from vacation. So that's Pat Williams. She wasn't there. Are there any other talks? You often know of things that are happening.
I'm trying to think,
Yeah.
which is hard for me. I don't know of any other. There might be some at the Kennett Library. There's something coming because they've got that nice big room.
Mm-hmm.
I did see somebody was going to talk there, but about Chester County history. I guess if you Google Kennett Library or get on their website,
Mm-hmm.
talks, it would tell you something's coming up about Chester County history. I should have written it down, but I didn't.
Yeah. There is
Bruce-
in Oxford.
Bruce Mounty and somebody else.
Okay, yeah. And also, as Sally discovered, there's a talk coming up with the History Center, the Chester County History Center, by Jonathan Hoppy, who was the fellow who did the Find a Grave work I don't know if he did all of it, but he certainly did the bulk of it, for the Churchill Cemetery.
Hmm.
And so it added a few more details to his biography. I wasn't aware that he had a background in archiving and libraries. Because what I could find at one point suggested he was working in a store in Philadelphia or something. So, but that made more sense for this kind of work. But he's going to basically talk about doing the kind of research he did on a cemetery where you don't have a lot of headstones.
Well, Quaker cemeteries, some don't have headstones.
Right. And so, it involves research using death certificates and other sorts of things like that.
There's a Lafayette Day at Thornberry Farm, July 26th, I think. Lafayette came back over.
Right.
And,
Is this what, 200 years? 200 years?
Yeah,
300 years?
250?
250?
No, I'm not.
No, he came back over in
He came
26.
over in 1825 or something.
Yeah, 25 or 26, yeah.
And the Thornberry Farm is the site of Randall Spackman has it. He's in the Chadds Ford Historical Society, and the battle was fought there. It's the only place where the generals could see each other, but they couldn't shoot that far. But they could see each other during the Battle of the Brandywine.
Mhm.
And Lafayette was wounded there, but he created enough of a distraction, and well, it's battle tactics, but it's interesting.
Mhm.
And so he became pretty respected. So when he came back, it was a hero's welcome, more or less.
Mhm.
So,
Paul,
that's July 26th.
Okay.
the Chester County History Center is having, I'm looking at their schedule now. They're having quite a few events in June.
Mhm.
And you go on their website, I guess just under events, you can pull it up. But some are ones about the Mason-Dixon line. That's a virtual talk. And then there's one about the underground. Oh, that's a walking tour of the Underground Railroad.
Mhm.
So they're doing a lot of things over there. Some are in person, some are virtual. In addition to the gentleman about the cemetery research.
Right. And there's going to be a Juneteenth celebration in Kennet.
Right.
Crystal was talking about that.
Right.
And so that would be, with the Underground Railroad Center in Kennet.
Oh, and there was, shoot, what was I thinking? Never mind, it'll come back to me. It's gone.
Okay.
Quick.
Anyway, so that's what I've got. Is there any other topics anybody wants to discuss? Okay, so we can wrap this up at, I'm just going to call it 8:55. No, 7:55. Yeah,
Got half an hour daylight left.
I know. So we can adjourn at 7:55. And everyone have a nice 4th. I probably won't see you.
The picnic.
Yeah, I can't.
You're gonna be away.
I'm going to be away.
We used to go to that,
Yeah.
but it's in
You
Wayne.
want to go?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Not without you.
Yeah, there's basically the recognition picnic for historical societies and stuff that some of us have gone to in the past, and so that's coming up. But I'm away, so I'm not going.
It is worth going to if anybody's interested. They've always put on a nice affair.
They have,
Interesting
yeah,
places too.
yeah. It was at Warwick Furnace last year.
Yeah, it's a Waynebrook Manor, I think, this year, something
That
like that.
sounds right. Yeah.
But we went when it was in Sugartown, and
Mm-hmm. The Sugartown one
that
was
was
nice.
quite a place.
Yeah. Okay. So good evening and enjoy the rest of the daylight hours. And we'll be talking about working on the Churchill Cemetery, which is about to become an even bigger project than it has been. Which is good because we've got lots of people involved now, and we've actually made contact with Galilee, which is something we've been trying to do off and on for a couple of years. So I guess things are coming together.
Oh,
Yeah. So you all take care.
Right. Good night.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everyone.
Good
Thanks.
night.